a strange ice continent at the end of the earth. Its hostility forbids all but the hardiest forms of life. Humans have ventured onto Antarctica only very recently. Captain Scott's 1902 expedition was the first to discover a colony of the hardiest of animals. On his 1910 expedition, his scientist Edward Wilson set out to discover how these animals bred and even hoped to show a missing link between reptiles and birds.
We are inclined to search among the emperors as being among the most primitive of penguins, if not the most primitive of birds.
This film tells two stories. How three pioneers endured staggering hardships on a journey to seek the emperor penguin's breeding secrets. And how 80 years later, for the first time since Wilson and his companions, a camera crew plans to venture out into the same frozen hell of the world's worst winter to tell the story of these truly remarkable birds. The emperor penguins is perhaps the most amazing animal survival story. They live in the world's coldest sea, the great Southern Ocean which encircles Antarctica. Where the transantarctic mountains and the Ross Sea meet the vast Ross Ice Shelf is the most southern emperor breeding spot, Cape Crozier. Crozier is a wind-blasted place. Blizzards rage down from the polar plateau at up to 200 kilometers an hour. This is an ice-scoured place, where the moving Ross Ice Shelf meets immovable Cape Crozier. The result is an unearthly chaos. In winter, the sea will freeze. The emperors will come to breed in these deep canyons in the ice shelf. Along the 1,000-kilometer front of the Ross Ice Shelf, the ice flows in an orderly way. Regularly and neatly, huge icebergs break away, forming islands of ice 70 meters high and 500 meters deep. During the brief summer, Cape Crozier is a wildlife hotspot. Seabirds feed in the rich ocean, crowding onto ice-free land to breed. The summer penguins are Adelies, small and tough. It's now late January. The Adelie chicks are nearly full-grown and always demanding. Like pirates, skuas gather. They're fishing birds, but will prey on the eggs and chicks of penguins to feed their own young. Strangely, liquid fresh water is rare on the ice continent, and the skuas luxuriate in it. Crozier supports a few very hardy plants. Freshwater algae in full summer bloom, and leathery lichen. As the Adelies' summer residence ends, the emperor penguins are still nowhere near land. They're far out in the moving pack ice, spending summer's end fattening themselves on fish, squid and krill. This is their last week out in the pack ice. They sense their winter vigil is near. As autumn bites and their feeding grounds are barred by ice, they will start one of the most remarkable fasts of any animal. But they're not mimics or comics. Their round bodies, small feet, flippers and heads are all heat-saving adaptations. And they're the largest penguins, standing over a meter tall, waist high to a person, and weighing up to around 40 kilograms. The colors on their necks are courtship signals. The black and white body color deceives enemies at sea. The ice is closing in. This hole is their only access to food. But it's enough. Emperors are superb undersea hunters, holding their breath for nearly 20 minutes and diving to over 450 meters. March. The open sea is smoking as the temperature drops below minus 30 degrees. The deep freeze is underway. As winter closes in, it becomes harder and harder to break the ice. A crab-eater seal suddenly hijacks their last dive hole. This energetic and threatening display blocks off their access to the last open water. So, with their biological clocks counting down to mating, the emperor penguins finally start their long trek, hundreds of kilometers into the frozen wasteland. Putting this summer behind them, they must now begin to steal a march on next summer, while the other Antarctic animals are still finishing this season's breeding. The New Zealand camera crew and its support team set out on the first of their monthly trips from base to Cape Crozier.
Yeah, afternoon, boy. We're just about 10 km.
On each trip, they'll stay on track, using satellite navigation equipment.
Yeah, just need to go a bit left there, mate. Just a few metres.
This team will be the first to drive these 85 kilometers across the ice during the winter night. They've laid fuel dumps at marked depots in much the same way as early Antarctic explorers laid food dumps. Guided by their flagged route and by satellite, the oversnow vehicle will traverse the ice desert for 8 hours. To avoid huge crevasse fields near Cape Crozier, the route swings onto Ross Island. The blizzard obscures their flags. The team decide they should plant extra flags to guide them through the dark months. At journey's end, sturdy, insulated huts have been built and lashed down. But the first filming trip finds the toilet wrecked and one hut blown sideways.
And then, yeah, and then we put a bit of tube on it and we roll it.
After the hut's repaired, it's decided to double the guy wires. They're soon put to the test. The vehicle too must be anchored. Blizzards hit suddenly. They cut through flesh. Frail humans would die in minutes without high-tech clothing or shelter. With a 100-kilometer-an-hour wind and cold of minus 20 degrees, the wind chill is actually minus 56 degrees Celsius. Rather an advance on the pioneers' blubber stoves, a generator drives a microwave, a heater, and lights. The toilet hut has been rebuilt more sturdily. Setting up, the camera crew wonders, if this is summer, what will winter hold? And wherever they go, they carry a safety beacon. Another precaution against the lethal cold which rages just centimeters away. The Antarctic creatures are naturally equipped for survival. The skua chick has grown fast and is near fledging. Just as well. Soon the cold will deepen, its food will disappear, and together with the other summer visitors, it will have to leave. By March, most Adelie penguins have gone. These chicks may be too late to make it north for winter. The skewers will clean up the stragglers. They have a last bath before the fresh water is frozen over and they have to fly north to their winter grounds. Until next summer's brief thaw, the vegetation is freeze-dried. April, deep autumn. The camera crew takes more insurance against getting lost during their hour-long night tramps down to the Emperor's colony. Now it's the time of arrival for the emperors. Using navigation systems still unknown to scientists, the emperors are guided over hundreds of kilometers to converge on Cape Crozier. Their breeding cycle is a month later than colonies further north, where it is lighter and warmer. Built for swimming, their most efficient surface travel is tobogganing on their bellies. These are the first people ever to witness the Emperor's arrival at this southernmost colony. They're anxious to see how many birds will show up. By mid-April, there are still only 250 birds. This is why they trek so far. In a canyon running deep into the ice shelf, they find stable ice which won't be broken out by storms. Before darkness comes, the crew visits an historic site. The stone igloo built by Wilson's team in 1910 when they made their terrible midwinter journey.
So Wilson's igloo?
Yeah.
Doesn't say who was in the party.
Yeah,
it's a bit silly.
Wilson, Bowers and Cherry Gerard.
Yeah, right.
So this is where they set up their camp.
Yeah, well apparently the penguins were just way down just at the bottom here.
Down over here, right.
Yeah.
They left a lot of rubbish and stuff behind, haven't they? There's what seems to be a food box and a ball of string. And
No one has seen the Crozier colony in midwinter since. No one has ever tried to visit nearly every month. And Antarctica still works the same dark magic the pioneers sensed.
The grey, limitless barrier seemed to cast a spell of cold immensity. Vague, ponderous, a breeding place of wind and drift and darkness.
It's now early May. The camera crew make the most of the midday dusk. The colony has grown to at least 1,000 birds. The crew are amazed to see them all packed in one tight huddle against the -44 degrees cold. Remarkably, there are 10 big birds crammed into every square meter. Unlike other penguins, emperors don't claim and defend a nest site. Scientists believe this loss of territorial aggression is the key to emperor breeding success. It lets them huddle to overcome their common enemy, the cold. The imperial courtship begins with the male calling the female. The courting is stately, but seductive. A swaying walk entices the female away from the crowd. They may pose, motionless, or bow. If their ritual is interrupted, there's an imperious altercation. At the beginning of winter, the males are rippling fat and full of fight. As they pay court, their body clocks synchronize, and after a few days they will mate. Huddling conserves half of the body heat they'd otherwise lose. Each bird will take its turn acting as a windbreak before shuffling to the sheltered side. With most emperors paired and mated, the colony settles in autumn's brief and dusky midday. Near midwinter day, when darkness is constant, the camera crew sets out to retrace the pioneering journey to Crozier. Following the British tradition of exploration, Scott chose Navy men and talented civilians. Though not a trained scientist, Apsley Cherry Garrard was assistant zoologist. Scott chose him for his enthusiasm, intelligence, and adaptability. He edited the accounts of what became known as the worst journey in the world. Lieutenant Birdie Bowers was named for his nose rather than any ornithological expertise. A stocky 28-year-old, Bowers never felt the cold. He was Scott's field equipment organizer, practical, cheerful, undefeatable. The Crozier leader, Edward Wilson, was Scott's right-hand man, a multi-talented Antarctic veteran, medical doctor, zoologist, and artist. Wilson captured the heroic age of Antarctic exploration in his art, as Cherry Garrard did in his writing.
The horror of the 19 days it took us to travel from Cape Evans to Cape Crozier would have to be re-experienced to be appreciated. And anyone would be a fool who went again.
No fools. The crew can cover in one day what took Wilson's team 3 weeks of hauling heavy sledges. But the same hazards still exist. crevasses could swallow the vehicle as easily as a sledge. Each of Wilson's team fell into many crevasses. Their clothes froze to armor. Their sleeping bags froze. They suffered frostbite. Finally, at Crozier, they built a stone igloo.
Here, with the stove, which was to be fed with blubber from the penguins, we were to have a comfortable, warm home, whence we would make excursion to the rookery, perhaps 4 miles away.
The modern expedition has it easier, but not that easy. Between trips, blizzards block up the huts. The huts are shaken severely. One is shifted despite its double guy wires. The wind drives powdery snow through the cracks.
That will keep me busy.
The blizzard past, the camera crew sets out full of the excitement of discovery and apprehension at venturing onto new sea ice.
No problem. It's really solid all the way through too.
Yeah.
Yep. Till we hit the bottom and end up on the knees. Just like to go. Just drilling as we go out. Yeah.
Their predecessors fought through a chaos of pressure ridges.
We got into a cul-de-sac, where we slithered about and blundered into crevasses.
Next day, they tried an easier route.
The penguin's call reached us, and we stood, 3 crystallized ragamuffins above the Emperor's home. After indescribable effort and hardship, we were witnessing a marvel of the natural world, and we were the first and only men who had ever done so. And we had but a moment to give.
The camera crew have little over an hour to film before the cold drives them back to the huts. Although it's midday, their only light source is battery-powered. Extreme care must be taken. Any disturbance during breeding could be disastrous. Using extremely low light levels, they record these unique pictures, observing that many of the females have already laid their eggs. With the egg hidden under a brood flap, they shuffle into the range of the light, but it takes several trips to the colony before the crew catch sight of their first egg. The single egg is taken up onto the female's feet and tucked under her bare brood flap. The Emperor's remarkable muscular control regulates the incubation warmth at more than 30 degrees Celsius. Compared to the size of the adult, this is the smallest egg of any bird. To strengthen their bond before the female leaves for 9 weeks, each pair performs a duet. The female is reluctant to give up the egg. The male is anxious to start incubating it. When they finally agree, it's a quick changeover. The males are now bound to an incredible vigil. The females must trek to the distant sea to feed. Wilson noted some males incubating frozen eggs or lumps of ice. Then his team quickly took 5 eggs, killed 3 penguins for their blubber stove, and headed for their igloo.
We on this journey were already beginning to think of death as a friend. As we groped our way back that night, sleepless, icy, and dog-tired in the dark and the wind and the drift, a crevasse seemed almost a friendly gift.
The camera crew are exhausted after another day of filming. Carrying heavy equipment, they must spend 3 hours on the ice in temperatures of -40 degrees.
Oh, that's the Igloo pickup. It's been abandoned, obviously. Quite.
Back in their igloo, the pioneers had a day's rest and warm food.
Seems pretty weird, to think that it was 80 years ago, almost to the day, that, they were here.
Then a sudden and terrible storm struck.
It was blowing as though the world was having a fit of hysterics. The earth was torn in pieces.
Their tent blew away, and the igloo was destroyed. Facing death on an impossible march homewards, they huddled while the storm raged for 24 hours. They searched in vain, searched again, and found the tent miraculously intact.
Our lives had been taken away and given back to us.
Yeah, good evening, Ross.
The greatest problem for the high-tech team was poor radio reception.
A few problems with the Crozier radio using the compact at the moment, though.
Their midwinter trip ended when the camera froze. Their way home, by comparison, was warm and swift.
The horrors of that return journey are blurred to my memory, and I know that they were blurred to my body at the time. The day's march was bliss compared to the night's rest, and both were awful. We were about as bad as men can be and do good traveling, but I never heard a word of complaint.
Another storm could have stopped them forever, but with settled weather and one light sledge, they took just 7 days to reach their Cape Evans base.
The Crozier party returned last night after enduring for 5 weeks the hardest conditions on record. They looked more weather-beaten than anyone I have yet seen.
Of what lasting value was their epic of endurance? Wilson's team had discovered one of the animal world's most remarkable breeding cycles. The embryos and their hard-won eggs did not show Wilson's theorized link with the reptiles, but that in itself advanced scientific knowledge. Thus ended the worst journey in the world. For the camera crew, the 4-month-long night has ended. Striding down in the new sunlight, they're elated. With modern equipment, planning and strong support, they can return yet again where Wilson and his men dared venture only once. They're greeted by the sounds of spring. It's August, and half of the males have moved away from the huddle as their chicks hatch.
They've brooded the egg for 9 weeks, nurturing new life through incomprehensible cold. August is actually the coldest month, with temperatures as low as -50 degrees Celsius. If new chicks are abandoned, they'll freeze within 2 minutes. Mortality seems low this season. Most of the 400 eggs do hatch. In Emperor's feet, the warm arteries run beside the cold veins to heat the blood before it re-enters their body. Their flippers have similar heat exchangers. And in their sinuses, the air they breathe out warms up the air they breathe in, recovering 80% of the heat. During their amazing 4-month fast, the males have eaten only snow for its moisture. They've survived off their fat. Although he has an empty stomach, each father now manages to feed his chick an oily secretion from his crop. Relief is on its way. Females, sleek with fat and full of food, are returning from their long fishing trip. Now, the once larger male is the smaller of the pair. He's 45% lighter than he was. The moment of greeting. She left an egg, she returns to a chick. He doesn't want to give up what he's guarded for 9 weeks. The female is keen to take over. The changeover has to be quick, so the chick won't freeze. The bond is so strong, the male won't leave for a day or two. But he has to go and feed, and sometimes go a long way. Over winter, sea ice doubles the size of Antarctica. Hungry males often have to trek hundreds of kilometers. But this year, the sea ice has cracked open nearby. The cracks will refreeze, but for now the Crozier males can feed just a few kilometers from the colony. Another month, another visit. From September, the parents run a shuttle service, delivering seafood meals. The fast-growing chicks are still brooded and fed under cover and taken for walks. But September is a dangerous time for chicks trying to find their feet. They can be harassed by would-be foster parents. If lost, they'll die quickly from the bitter spring cold. Luckily, this is a quiet area of the colony. The chick and parent are reunited. On the other side of the colony, there are a lot of non-breeders desperately seeking offspring, and stray chicks are pounced on and mauled. Kidnapped chicks are most often lost, killed by an overwhelming mother instinct. Chicks die from many causes. This far south, a heavy blizzard now could ravage the colony. In late September, there's a peaceful time around midnight, as a brief dusk settles. Soon there'll be no more darkness for the 4-month-long summer day. In October, the Adelie penguins arrive for their breeding season. They're busy home building and starting a family. Both penguin species aim to get chicks away and adults molted before autumn closes in. The emperor just takes a winter longer to do it. The emperor chicks are 3 months old and have left their parents' warmth, now that their down jackets are thick enough. The chicks are too big to be bothered by the returning skuas, who have to scavenge or bother the Adelies. Overpowering parental urges are still inflicted on the few late developers. And injured youngsters are doomed to a short life. The bigger chicks can resist unwelcome advances. When the cold bites too deeply, the chicks now huddle in a creche, an instinctive forerunner of the adult breeding strategy. Wilson was astounded by the rigors of the emperor penguin's life.
Only the best can survive. In consequence, I challenge you to find a more jolly, healthy lot of gentlemen in this world.
The bellies full of seafood soon foul the neighborhood of the colony, and thirsty emperors have to forage further for clean snow. Chicks practice making their own way, something they'll soon have to do to stay alive. The time of reckoning is near. It's high summer, December. The summer animals return as the open water creeps inshore. The emperor chicks will soon be left to swim or sink. It was Wilson's summer visit to Crozier which inspired his epic midwinter journey. The camera crew returned for their last visit. The Adelis are fishing to feed their new chicks. Just as they hatch their offspring, the emperors abandon theirs. Through December, the adults wander away from the colony for the last time, leaving their chicks to fledge and fend for themselves. Now fully insulated, they swelter in the summer heat of 0 degrees Celsius. The sea ice breaks up under the colony. The big chicks are anxious. They're reluctant to set sail on a raft of ice. The adult Adelis show them how, but they're not ready to follow. They don't want to leave their crowd. Finally, still looking too young to be alone in the world, they strike out. Their first year will be hard. 8 out of 10 will probably perish. The survivors won't return to breed until they're 5 years old, though they will visit. The pioneers survived the worst journey in the world. After 13 visits, over 11 months, the camera crew have succeeded too. Time to celebrate. With all its high-tech advantages, this expedition has still been a struggle against cold, wind, darkness, and the hidden dangers of the ice landscape. It takes an enormous effort for humans to exist, even for short periods in this bleak land. The emperors of Antarctica are superbly fitted to live all year and raise new life in the most hostile place on Earth. They are the undisputed aristocrats of this wondrous, savage place.